We are now recessing back into open session. We've had a recess because we had some technical difficulties. We are ready to go. I will therefore, the next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Are there any changes or amendments to the agenda?
Madam Chair, could I please on number 3, letter F, number 1, policy DBDB financial reserve, could we please table that until our work session in November?
Yes.
I mean December. We're in November. In December.
December. Are there any objections to that? Are there any other changes?
No, you're good.
or amendments to the agenda? In that case, I learned a wonderful thing. I don't have to ask for a motion for this. I can just, as a board chair, I can just say the agenda is adopted as amended and move forward. That saved us probably 30 seconds, Jeremy.
Getting more efficient every day.
The explanation took a minute.
Next time. You'll save that 30 seconds.
Okay, we'll move on to our business for our work session. The first is the climate survey.
So if you guys look at the packets, what I've attached there are the climate surveys. So the first one is our student climate survey altogether. And I'm just going to briefly go over it because what's going to happen on Monday, we'll go through and Bobby will give some highlights. And so if you can kind of see what we have is the student climate survey, the staff climate survey, the NISA high school climate survey. Here's a student climate survey for 4th and 5th. So if you look on that one, it says 4th and 5th. So what we want you to see is the difference between what we're asking the elementary and the responses. And then it's 3rd grade. Should be middle school in there. Just saw it in middle school. I went through this.
Is the first one middle school?
It may be if there's 206 on there.
Yes.
Fifth page.
206?
206 responses.
Yeah,
It's
so
the
I
first.
see middle school on that one.
It just doesn't say middle
So,
school.
sorry. So that was middle school, and then staff, then high school, then elementary, 4th and 5th, and 3rd. The public responses aren't in here right now. We have 40 of them. You're going to do another push out today to get the rest of anybody in the community to respond. And the great part about it is we're giving away a Nintendo Switch Lite for any family to complete that. And so which makes a great Christmas present.
For any
Yeah.
family.
Say that again though. It's a drawing.
It's a drawing.
You said for
Let me-
any family.
Okay, correct that.
It's a drawing. Any family that fills it out are going to be
I got it.
entered into a drawing
There
for a
you
chance to win one
There you
That's better.
Nintendo Switch Lite. So thank
You
you.
just want to make sure.
Yeah, guess what? I'm like Oprah. This is the second Oprah reference in this room today. I know that for sure. But so we have 40 right now. We want to push that out and get some more responses. And so, because we really want to see where our community's at, our kids are at now. It's a snapshot in time. And in January, February, we're going to do the same thing. And at the end of the year, so what we're going to do is see some changes, some key things. So if you kind of, and this is where it looks a little kind of wonky on it. If you just look at the very first one, we're calling the middle school one. If you turn to page 2, there's like half of a little pie chart there. I'm still trying to figure out, like, do you feel safe at home? Their response is 90%. And then, so the next one, which should be on top, is over, do you feel that teachers care about you? And so just for you guys to know when you guys go through that. You see that, how it's kind of a little wonky on that, so. But I think more than anything, we'll have, like I said, better numbers for you on Monday. But I want you guys to go through and look at those questions we're asking kids. You know, Bobby took a bunch from not only some things that we want to highlight, but also the teen survey as well. So there's some drug things in there and alcohol use. And so we just wanted you guys to have a just so you guys can see that. But like I said, our October one, or our November one, we're gonna be sharing out the results of this. Any questions on the surveys?
Okay, when were the surveys done?
So they've been done, I think, since the beginning of October
Okay,
to,
so, I mean, I should say, when were they taken?
it was the beginning of October. And then the adult ones, or the community one, was during conferences when we first got them. And so, we'll let it, hopefully we get a push out, we get about 100 responses, which we want to be right around there. Then we'll kind of shut it down, so it won't be much longer. Thank you. Yes?
Is it too late for us to look at questions?
And that's what I was kind of wondering, we'll get that cleaned up, I apologize on that. And so when we copied it off, it was like that, because if you look at,
So just look at the last page, right?
yeah, that's
Got
what
it.
I would do, so.
Any other questions? So, feel free already, when Bob gets this,
And what we're gonna do is give some highlights of that, and hopefully you guys are able to go through this and see some of those things, and we're gonna point out, like, if you do see, you feel safe at school, there's a big discrepancy in there, we're gonna point it out today. Right now, we're at 63%, what we wanna do is, here's what we're gonna do, we're gonna attack that, and see if we can do an increase in that for our January,
we'll then move on to, the next item would be the state report cards.
So hopefully everybody's seen this. This got released 2 weeks ago, and this is available online to anybody, or on the state ODE or our website. And so these are report cards in here, and know that these report cards, the data, it's from the 22-23 school year, right? But the graduation rate and all of that is actually from the previous year, and it's kind of weird how they do that. They catch up on it. And so. What I'm going to have you guys do is we're going to look at the district report card to give you an overall kind of snapshot. And this, I think, so it says this is SD 26 on top.
I can say that number right there, right?
1329 on the.
Oh, yeah, on the student sample, yes. So here's kind of that snapshot, those bigger picture ones from the buildings. And so if you look at regular attenders, right, our attendance rate was a huge increase, 8%. And actually right now we're above that as our attendance. We, with the admin, our ad council, we went through and looked at all that. So we're actually even above that number this year. So we're way above the state. And so, and I will give that in my superintendent's report. English language arts is the next one. So you have attendance, third grade. We're up 9% from last year. Oregon average is 40%, so we're catching up. Our 8th grade mathematics, and this is somewhere, our mathematics is something we want to focus on. We're down 2% from previous year. And so we are on Oregon average, and now we're below it. But this year we're putting in new math curriculum and things like that. And so, so there's 8th grade math, and we also saw a big discrepancy in the 5th and 6th grade math in there as well as a transition. On track to graduate, we increased by 1%. We're actually right there along with the state. Thank you. Ms. Redmond here is going to help us with the next section, but it actually works really well. On-time graduation, I have an 8% decrease on this. And so we're below the state on this, and Mr. Jackman's going to kind of highlight some things when we do give a report on Monday about this. So in our 5-year completer rate, we're actually at 9% above the Oregon average on there as well. So these are kind of the big, what they call the big ones, right? Is our attending, it's 3rd grade reading, 8th grade math, and graduation. And so that's what the state really kind of, that's where our district one looks like. If you turn the page, you can kind of see a breakdown of all of our ethnic groups and where they're at. So if you look at, say, regular attenders, so Hispanic Latino is 69%, the multiracial 75%, white is 83%, and so that's what it means when you go through that. And those are, if we look at 3rd grade, so if it says 26% Hispanic Latino, that means 26% passing. Compared to our white suits, which is 59%. Any questions on this part? Thank you. So, again, we'll have each building give a quick report on some of the highlights or some areas that we've identified and which talked about, and so we're going to highlight it again based on this. This is what we're telling us. That's where we got some of that information from. So, perfect. Ready to move on? Look at that.
So, could we make a small change in the agenda and have Mr. Redmond present on the early learning literacy? And then we'll go back to the SRO? Is that?
Excellent. So I've asked Mr. Redmond to come and present on the early literacy grant, and this is kind of like the big new thing for the year. There's last year's the legislators passed this year for a large grant to focus on early literacy, which is a very noble cause. And to say that we've spent a lot of brain power trying to understand this would be like a disservice to how much work it's been just to understand what's going on. Am I correct on that, Mr. Redmond?
Yeah, it's taking a lot of time.
Yeah, so I asked him, and what we want to do is kind of give a brief overview for everybody what the early literacy grant is and where we're at in the process. And Mark is just coming from a meeting talking about it, and so I will actually turn it over to him and just kind of give us, what I want to do is give you guys a good understanding. Someone says, hey, what is this early literacy thing you're talking about? Just so you have that, and that's what that one pager is, that they talk about what NIST is doing in Mount Airy County, because I think it's some pretty cool stuff. So, Mark, it's all yours.
Thanks for the invite, Ryan. Thanks for allowing me a little bit of time. I'm not going to take a long time. As Ryan said, I just got back from a meeting on rulemaking, so they're getting down to the nitty-gritty stuff. So this was the governor's big education push legislatively in the spring. There were different pots of money, but for K-12, there's $90 million coming out for this biennium, so this year and next. And this is cutting as 120 a year, 120,000 a year, give or take, I think, if I remember right. It's hard when they pass something in the long session and then it doesn't make it through all the process until August, and we start school in August, so we're stuck in the middle of the year trying to build a plan why it's in all pieces yet. So those pieces are still coming. What we do know is that the allocations came out about a month ago. They can be spent. There's some requirements. You have to say, okay, what your curriculum is. You have to have an inventory of assessments, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, they're asking for professional development teachers that teach K-3 with a little bit of 4 or 5 these first couple of years, and then that's going to go away. It's going to be pretty much K-3. So professional development, coaching, so however that's provided. They're wanting some tutoring done, and they're also asking for some out-of-school time. So translation of those is out-of-school time could be after-school programs, could be Friday school programs, and a 4-day week, summer school programs. Your tutoring, probably already do a little bit of that down at the elementary, where they pull groups of kids out, 5 or 6 at a time, and they work on that. And then you have a coaching component. You guys have, I think, a coach down there at the elementary school, and then professional development. And so for our larger districts, it's a little bit easier to accomplish that because they have the resources to do that in Valenus and Ontario. The little ones, they get $41,000 to try to pull all that stuff off. So kind of off to the side, ESD's working with the smaller ones to throw into a consortium. And NISA will be a part of that because there is some back office requirements in terms of tracking stuff and paperwork and all that kind of stuff. And we want to help all the districts out in that. Brian, I think he's going to share a draft narrative.
Absolutely.
Did you already do that yet?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And I want you to hear what Mark said. He just got back from a meeting talking about the rules of this, right? And so in August, we're starting this plan, and we're trying to understand this. And they're still building them just, all that gray alone has been, what was it, 2 weeks ago at the superintendent's meeting? You thought I would have every superintendent's head below. They were just like, they were at capacity, it was, and so if you guys turn, and so it says, it's the application planning template. And so this is kind of our first draft again, and Mr. Redmond has taken a lot of this and we understand. And so this is that first draft. So it's way back there because we, it should be after your roles and responsibilities, that one, the SRO, keep going, and it looks like this application planning template has a box here. Yeah.
In your binder, sorry.
In your binder.
Sorry, it wasn't what I handed out. The state stuff is what I handed you guys. Some of that's actually changed already too. Yeah, it's hard to keep up.
So when is this actually available?
So that's the one thing I want to really, from the board perspective, they're still crafting the rules, right?
So are they asking for the applications already?
The application window is December 1st to January 8th. But you don't have to have board approval until February 28th.
We don't really know what you're applying for yet?
Yeah, so we're pushing back against that because there is a scenario with that where Brian can submit your guys' application and at the next board meeting, you guys are like, we don't like this. Take it back. And so those are some things that are still getting ironed out. I mean, that's the stage we're at. But the application window opens December 1st. Right now, it says that it closes January 8th. We would hope that that would change because that would mean you would have to approve this at your next two board meetings, so next week or in a month. And I really don't think we're gonna have enough time to draft all that up by then. And, because I think your meeting in January is probably after the 8th, is what I guess. And so just realize that's not anything right. That's something that will have to do. And so from a board's perspective, you're gonna see this. You're gonna see a presentation and I don't know, whenever it got turned in by the 8th right now, of January, so.
It'll be December, and it'll probably change again before then.
So, what he's sharing with you is a narrative portion, really the meat of it, the budget document, which we don't have.
Yeah, and there's part of it that we have to have a 20% matching with it as a district, but that 20% matching is on top of, there are some things that we're already doing, saying we're already kind of committed to, like the tutoring portion of those things. And so no, the 20% of that 120, have to come with 20% matching on that. Is that correct?
25.
Oh, 25%, sorry.
Does that have to come from the general fund, or can we use
So
the
that
funds?
was exactly part of today's meeting.
Oh.
One of the things they're wanting to do is make that open to any funding source for a school district. They're trying to make that as open as possible. So, summer school funding that you're already paying, that's, I think it's 25% of 120,000. You're good. So you just gotta find 40,000 somewhere in the general fund, but it's being made right now. So that's the hope that everybody's pushing for, is that is as flexible as possible.
And I will kind of state it again, I do feel like we're way ahead of where most people are, which is really good. And again, that's because of Mark and Mallory and Steve kind of helped us do that. But and so here's kind of the narrative template, as you can kind of see. A lot of these pieces we are doing, like I said, so they look at, what is your diagnostic in your, we just instilled MAP this year. And so we got the MAP diagnostic with all of the dyslexia screeners, all of that, those things, we put that in this year, which is actually, perfect, right? So we're ahead of that, and then the UFLI is our intervention, UFLI, as we call it. Our intervention, if some of you guys have some kids in elementary, you probably see some of that homework come in. I just actually saw one from Emma today with the UFLI intervention thing. So that's our intervention along with our core. And so a lot of this just talks about the things we have already are doing. And so there's not going to be a huge radical change to our system. And so we're already doing a lot of these pieces. So do you want to add anything to that, Mark? I don't know if we need to fine tooth comb like
grant for? When does the spending?
October 1st.
October 1st?
You dated all it back to October 1st.
Okay.
So part of it is our spending and looking at that is where our early learning need is, as we see as in our multilingual reading. And so that's where we're going to start looking at kind of putting these funds and backdating that. But again, things could change, but really those dual language classrooms, the language learners, I'm calling them language learners because even our English learners and the dual language are language learners, and bringing them the early literacy skills and skills, both Spanish and English. And so that's going to be something that we don't currently have. It is a way for us to really increase that early literacy for our buildings. And so that's where we're thinking of going with. And so that's part of our narrative in here. Any questions about, there's 8 questions I think there was, right? Is it?
Yeah, there's a couple, I made that template out just from scratch, it's easier. So in those boxes, that has to be copied and pasted into the document in OAP, so that's just easier to skip them.
I got them all, so I'll say about it.
There's the planning template and the questions.
So if we're already doing some of this, what category is this gonna help us in the most with this money?
So like I said, that's going to have that reading specialist go in there and really focus on the multilingual students, the early literacy students, and help not only catch up, because we know that our English-speaking students in those dual languages, right, there's that kind of that gap that occurs. Well, actually what we're going to do is we're going to minimize that gap by some very specific, targeted early literacy vocab, especially in Spanish and English, and so hopefully minimize that. So it's not a catch-up at 5th, 6th grade, right, we're going to see that sooner. But also our Spanish-speaking students, they're going to be reading in Spanish, so there's not going to be that language, right now I'm trying to learn how to read in English, I'm still trying to learn English, and so it's actually going to be targeting those guys, and we're going to see faster growth. That's the theory around it, so, it's a great question.
Are there other questions for Mark or Ron? I really wanted us to know about this program, or to know, because I know how much work you're putting into it, and how much can change before we really commence it.
And so that one pager there, the colorful one, that's going to be your guys' the basics for you to understand what the early literacy grant is and those pieces. So what we're hoping is in the community, you're going to, hey, what is this early literacy grant? That's going to give you a summary and overview. It's like, oh, well, we know it's part of the governor's agenda is early literacy, and this is where it's come from. It's targeting our K-3 students this year. And again, I think we have some leeway this year. Next year, they're going to amp it up a little more. Right? That's what they're already saying on requirements and that. And so, but like I said, we already have a lot of these pieces already going and targeting our early literacy, so it's pretty cool.
Will it start here at preschool?
This year, it's only going to be K through 3. So, and we already have that staff member already kind of hired working and starting to transition there. So, like I said, we're already going.
The program isn't for less than K, or is it?
No, it can be applied to a pre-K program, and then outside of that 90 million, there's another 10 million that's going to the early learning, community-based organizations, early learning hubs, all that kind of stuff, folks that work with OCDC and Head Starts and all that, Toulouse. They get a break for a year, they're writing all that, they're not trying to build it while they're writing it.
Oh, gotcha.
And so next year, it will kick in for that, and it will be help. So if you have a preschool, you can kind of use your K-12 dollars, this is really pre-K through 3, and then you can also access some of that.
We're sure we won't need any of it for 4th and 5th grade, because this year would be weird to spend on that if we needed it, right?
Yes.
20% this year, and then it drops down to 10, and then it goes away right now.
Okay.
Yeah, right now.
So,
Yeah.
What metric are they using to determine if this has made a difference?
you know MAP, right? Actually, I call MAP sometimes, but it's MAP, right? It's a nationally normed test that you can actually see that, right? If you know, your kid was at a 71% nationally normed, like, are they staying with that, right? So you want them to be at least 71% or more because it tracks them through. Like I said, it's nationally normed. There's millions and millions of students in each grade, and every year, kind of that box and whisper kind of thing, right? And so that's what I'd say, this is the average. And then January, all those kids like this was the average, so staying at that 71% is key. So if we're seeing 72, 73, then that means we're those things are working for us.
Do we have other questions?
Same response when we were talking to superintendents, right? So,
Last meeting a month, and
yeah, I know. But Mark, I appreciate you coming.
See you tomorrow.
Yeah. This is, I mean, this is big, and this is all around, and there have been superintendents, you know, or districts, and is this worth all of the rigmarole, going through all the hoops and everything, because it is a lot for a small district. And Mark's support and the ESD support saying, hey, let's do this together, and I also said that NISA would be more than happy to kind of throw some in there as well and support that, because we're going to get marketing specialists, and so I think it's just, the partnership we have in Mountain County is something special. And so I just want to tell you, Mark, how much we appreciate it. So thank you. Thanks, Mark. Yeah.
Yes, we do appreciate it.
Yeah.
thank
We
you.
really appreciate your coming in.
No problem, anytime, till it changes next month. Thanks for the invite.
Not if, it's when it does. Thanks, sir. Have a good night. By the way, grab some food.
I'm good, thank you.
Are you sure? There's water at least.
Not for sure, right?
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is a big
It's
confusing.
confusing at best, and like I said, it's the chart has changed so many times, and it's just like, I don't know what we can do about not here to see.
I appreciate Mark being here, and so now we will go back to the SRO contract. Oh, I'm sorry.
Latinx. So, the Latinx position, and this is a position that we are presenting to the board that we're going to, that we would like to see added into our school district. It's a huge need for our Hispanic community. And so, one, before we really get into the description, what I want to tell you funding-wise is that it actually, one of our 4 goals for SIA, this fit one of our goals, and we had an increase in SIA funding this year. And so and that's what our integrated guidance, and that we submitted 2 weeks ago. We added this position, and so, as you know, this will not affect the general budget, but it will come out of our SIA, and nothing will be taken out of there because we did get an increase of funding in SIA. So before we get into that, I just want you guys to know that take the money out of it. We already got that figured out. So the Latinx, this is a position that, with guidance from ODE, that's talking to with Charlie and Jennifer at ODE, and also Michael Lindblad and his group, is this is a position we're seeing all over Oregon. Ontario has 2 Latinx specialists in there, and we're kind of taking some of their guidance from job description, and Megan looked at the job description from, I think it was Mount Angel, where else was it? Was, but yeah. So essentially what this is a specialist that that focuses on our Hispanic population, not just our migrant, not just like, I mean, we often see that is that because of federal funds and those things, is it limits how many resources some students get. This position is for all of our Hispanic students, even if they're not. There's no federal regulation on it, right? If there's needs, it will help them. But really create what we call infinity spaces, which are spaces that where our Latin community and Hispanic community has a voice, right? Connecting with the community more can help us translate, can help connect the district to all those families. And I think there's a big part of it that we miss, is just because we translate something, it doesn't mean we're connecting with our community. And so that this person is position. So really what I said kind of is encompassed in all the little pieces there. And I think I had, when Mrs. Ramirez and Mrs. Warnock, we met in August, remember we talked about this portion of it, and then we're in November, but, you know, that this is, I think this is essential for our student makeup and our need. This is something that is essential for us to continue to go forward. So,
And his position would be a confidential position or
it is a confidential position, correct?
and it would be
Or I'm sorry, classified position, I apologize. It's a classified position, yes, yes.
And supervisor, correct
The
supervisor.
supervisor would be myself, Gina, and Matt, so we're gonna
Okay, so
draw straws on, it's gonna be district supervised on that, so.
I don't know if I like preferred, where it says under the qualifications or education or experience, a 2-year relevant degree is preferred.
Is that typical of that
It's a-
kind of position?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a classified position, that's why, yeah.
And we put preferred on there, but because again, limiting possibly some candidates might be really good in that position, but that's part of it is that when we make that requirement of our classified, we're really limiting, there's not a lot that have that. And so, preferred means they will actually, when we go through the screening process, they actually get, I guess called points, for when they move ahead to the next round. But there's part of it, the 2-year degree, because we do expect them to, at a higher academic rate, to communicate, to help translate, to write things, and so we do want some higher level of schooling on there, so that's why we put preferred on it as well.
So in a job interview, if somebody was more qualified, you could say, well, we chose them because they were preferred.
Yeah, yep. They met the preferred standards on there,
Mhm.
and so when you say, well, how come I didn't get interviewed or those things, I say, well, you didn't meet the preferred qualifications on it. And we did have enough of a pool where we felt that we had that. And so we look at that. If we don't have a pool, right, say if we have 1 or 2, then we're just saying, didn't meet the preferred, but we still want to interview you.
I noticed that in the job description, you talk about the individual being fluent in both English and Spanish, writing as well as speaking. So, to me, that's important.
Mhm.
It
Extremely
does say
important.
language skills.
Yeah.
Other than, require to have a license for writing, I think. But I know some spots, especially like the court, you have to.
Yeah, and I know like prison, like there's a lot of places that have that, and we can seek that. I think that kind of where we're at with the position, we're just trying to feeling it out, being in the right position, to be honest with you, and not limiting on those qualifications. Do we want to maybe move towards that, saying, hey, we do want you to get that, the translation, I forget what it's called, qualification, kind of to make sure that they get more formal training on that, maybe, but I think right now we're out there, we're trying to get out there. I wouldn't say we're like the early literacy grant.
So is that something that you could put in here, that we expect you within so much amount of time to be certified?
I think there is some sort of language within there
The
talking about
certificates,
further
licenses, and
certification.
registrations.
I
Yeah.
want to say,
Yeah, I haven't read
I
all
can
of
read it
it,
off.
so.
It says certificates as determined by the district, including meeting highly qualified requirements under the ESEA ability to obtain a knowledge of that one, but that would be something I would look at.
And maybe put time on it, so that
I always think the position we have, that in the position that you're required to get certification at some point in that computer function, whatever. So
When they get certified, we're gonna price ourselves out of their services, so. Like the
Yeah.
core certified, they're expensive.
So the prison ones, real expensive.
Right.
well, you know, from a court standpoint, I don't know if that's certified, something wrong.
Well, I'm just wondering if we've got a budget now, then we require them to get certified. We can plan a whole lot more
yeah, then they leave.
Yeah.
That's why they pay for them to get their certification and then they're gone, because they can make more.
You're gonna let them go.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was thinking of the testing itself, like, is it gonna certify someone for like Spain Spanish versus Mexico Spanish versus, just Spanish, or like what people talk, like street talk Spanish? Like, how do you measure what certification you're expecting them to get that isn't gonna be compatible with Spanish spoken in our area? So that's the only downside. I think this person would need to be able to communicate with the population in the school, not necessarily this certain region or this certain region, is my take.
No, 100%. I don't know enough about the certification to tell you that answer, but that's something we would look into. But there's part of it, there's a training that goes along with that, because it's not just, well, I speak Spanish, I can sit there and interpret a board meeting, because we're going to have them come in and help support with those things, right? There is, like, how do you interpret? How do you, and the academic language and those things, it's not just, oh, I'm going to paraphrase it all, as you know, right? You can't do that. And so there is a lot of training that we're going to make available to that person to do that. So it's just not like, oh, good luck, just say everything you say in Spanish. We're going to give them the support to be successful for it, because our community deserves it.
The reason why I asked this is I've been in a court situation where burger got beat up pretty hard. You have one, and I guess it's probably going to happen in civils as well. You get that person who's doing the job, and they're going to say, this is why he's speaking, or their license or something, oh, no, you're not saying it right, what you're talking about, and they get beat up. Yeah.
IEP meetings, they're telling us.
Yeah,
They
I was
are
thinking of the
friends.
translation services we've had before, we had parents requesting.
Any questions about this? I mean, again, this is our study session. During the board, we'll kind of formally present the job description and that to you, but, so you guys can read through all those, and if you have any other questions, we'll reach out, but.
When are you gonna put it
So hopefully next Monday, if the board approves it, again, it'll be Tuesday morning, it'll be opened up. So if we do that on Monday, but if we say, hey, we want another month to look at it, then it would be as soon as it gets approved by the board, then we'll go forward. So,
How long does Ontario have their Latin America?
I don't know, it's a good question. Yeah, I met them for the first time during the district, or the countywide in-service. So, yeah.
So have you talked to Ontario to ask them what are the problems that you came across? Did you have to get them certified? You wish you were working on certification?
I haven't. And so that's something that when we go through this, I'm going to work with Annabelle, because she oversees that program, and say, hey, what are some things you see? Because they have built it over there. And then, like I said, with Charlie and Michael and his group, they're going to help direct those activities as well. So we have a lot of support around it and a lot of advocacy for this position. And a lot of people, I told Charlie, I said, hey, do you have some job descriptions within like 20 minutes? It was Michael Lindblad and Georgia, like she just was throwing them all, and it's actually really cool to see the state support us on this. So. Thank you, great question.
Do we have any other questions? We'll move on then to the SRO.
I don't feel like it's all me today, but this is like one of my final ones. So on Friday, I had the pleasure of meeting with Chief Ballou and Jim Merritt, the city manager, and to look at the SRO. I know we brought it up last time, and really talked about what does that mean for the city, what does that mean for the school district and that partnership. And so the first thing what you see here is the current service agreement with the Mississippi School District and the city. The second part on the back is just a one-pager. Here's kind of the things that we discussed in our meeting about, hey, this is what the city needs, this is what the school district needs, and so kind of that understanding is that this person would be a 1.0 school district. It's still a city employee, but basically full-time here at the school district and have requirements on that. And we talked about the national NASRO organization that they have to be a part of in the training, and that understanding is that that person is here delivering content to our students. We just got done with Red Ribbon Week. I couldn't say it last time, I said it too, Red Ribbon Week. And we want them in there giving the talks on the drugs and the alcohol, and it's the best program, is that what it's called? And so they're expected to be teaching classes, to be in there every day, to be counseling and doing all of those things. And a lot of things Corporal Rodriguez is doing with the outreach and things like that. But just, we really have that formalized in saying the district is going to direct a lot of those things and saying, here are the things we need to get done, and working through that. And I think that Chief Ballou and Jim Merritt are kind of on that same page. It's like, yes, we want that, but also there's an officer that anytime they need them for reasons that they work with the district to say, okay, hey, this week they're going to be here, but it is expected, they're at the school district. They're teaching, they're counseling, and they're doing all those functions of an SRO. So what I plan on doing is take the existing contract, these kind of roles and responsibilities that we have, and this is my very rough, and so I know Dustin, you're sitting there looking at that, I'm sorry. This is my very rough attempt at that, and I'm going to talk to Horton down there, and then say, hey, can we, here's the things that we need for the city and the school, and then here's the last one, to marry those two into a contract. And basically what we want to do is just have we work well with the city already, and just an understanding that we're going to pay for it. We're going to pay, at a certain amount a month, if it's $10,000 a month or whatever we decide that it is for that 120 for benefits, and that'll be 12 months a year.
So what will they do in the summer?
So during the summer, they're still going to be doing some outreach things and stuff like that, but they're going to be more available to the city, but we still want them to be doing those things. We still have summer school. We want them in connecting with, and then saying, it's July. They may be in this, working for the city a lot in July. However, saying, hey, there's opportunities for you to connect with kids or to do some of those pieces. Like, hey, I remember this kid was having a hard time during the school year. I'm going to go connect with them and do that. Still find ways to outreach, but I would imagine that they'll be more of a resource to the city at that time, but still also a resource to the district.
The other piece is, I think some of these school resource officer trainings and stuff, which are probably more of an annual thing that's gonna happen, especially your conferences and stuff that happen like that, are gonna happen there and stuff. In that off time, so that's probably where that person's gonna spend most of their time, is hitting those trainings and being set up to do all that stuff. Because the way I see it is, if the school's gonna pay, the full price, the 1.0, as we call it, they're gonna pay that, and that person's gonna be spending a lot more time working with the school than they would be with us. Just quite frankly, understanding, when we had that conversation, understanding that as a law enforcement officer, you have to act under color of law, which means if something happens, an emergency or something he sees that's a lawful issue he needs to act upon, he's gonna have to act upon regardless of what issue we are at the moment in time. Fairly rare that that's gonna happen, it doesn't happen. But the mission is to be here, and I think the biggest piece here that I think we really both want to see here is all the programs coming into the school with the SRO, physically going into the classroom, giving education on it, or helping the students and building that kind of groundwork. So.
And where does the money for this one come from?
That is also out of the SIA.
Okay.
So our increased budget that we're going to present to you guys on Monday, those are the two big changes in there, are the SRO and the Latinx position. And
they both come out of the SIA?
Yep. And so that's the increase in that.
Any other questions, comments on the SRO?
Like, I just want to put the last plug out there. I'm excited not only will this be valuable to our students, but also our community, because it allows the city to do some things, some proactive things that they would like to do as far as getting more support in our community. And so I think it's that great partnership, saying, hey, we need this, you know, we need that, and then just finding those opportunities to be partners with it is, like I said when we talked to Mark, it's like, as you can see, like, there's all these partnerships out there, and so if we started lining our arrows, it's just great for NISA. And so, but yeah.
Just for clarification, how soon will this happen? Is this like a future thing, or just for everyone to be on the same page? Or as soon as we can get it written up and signed?
That's what I'm hoping, as soon as we can get it up and signed, so, because there's gonna be, as we know, trying to get them, what does that organization look like? How do we send them that training? There's gonna be that, but as soon as we can start that, as we know, we can start spending that aside now, right? As soon as we get this done, and you guys approve it, which hopefully will be in our December meeting, is that we'll be able to go forward.
And it will continue to be Robert?
And that's, again, that's what I'll work with the chief, I'll be honest with you, that's what I'm hoping. He knows our school but again, that's what I'll work with chief on and what the city thinks and Corporal Rodriguez thinks as well. But anyway, so.
Yeah, the plan is to keep Corporal Rodriguez here, as long as he's continuing to work with us, or, you know, if he's going to continue to do this. He loves working at the school.
Yeah.
So do you get to hire another officer then?
Not with that alone.
No, do that.
It's starting to get us there.
Very
Right?
nice.
Yeah.
Right. It's a step forward. Sure, it's a really good step forward.
I'm excited to see this all come together.
Thank you.
Any other questions about that? We'll move on to the policies then. The first one, DB policy has been tabled. We'll move on to the BDDH, public comment at board meetings. I think we've all had a chance to read the policy, or the two policies actually. My own thinking is that I do like the time limit of the 3 minutes. What I'd like to put out for you all to think about is, there are actually two portions to public comment. One is public comment on the agenda items. The other is public comment just on general items that pertain to school. I would think that in the interest of keeping the meeting flowing, that if we could have a section for public comment on agenda items right up at the beginning, so we can go through our meeting, and then at the end of the meeting, have another public comment session for, you know, if someone wants to talk, bring to the board's attention something that we're not having to make a motion on or deal with during our meeting, but is for us to get other information on, perhaps bring up at another board meeting. I don't know how you all feel about this, but I want to throw that out to you. Still limiting the time to the 3 minutes, still requesting that items be discussed or brought forth and scheduled, basically scheduled with the board clerk, with Megan. So,
Is it appropriate if people call in and want to talk to the board, if say they call Megan, is it appropriate for her to say, is this something that you have already discussed with the superintendent? Because isn't that the proper, the proper channel, procedure, whatever, is to kind of go, yeah, because there's a lot of things that I think if people took 5 minutes and talked to Ryan about, then it wouldn't even need to be brought up, or he could bring it up as a concern to the board if it was something that should be presented to the board. So I guess, and Megan doesn't do anything anyway, so we're gonna put more on her. But really, is that something that,
I think.
as far as Megan could just, have you talked to the superintendent? Just a simple question. I was completely kidding about that.
from a patron saying, bring this to the board's attention or whatever, that should first of all go to the superintendent, because so oftentimes, as you said, it can be solved at that level.
So what's the best way to encourage people to take that step first?
So if they are to fill out the form and say, I'd like to speak at the Monday board meeting, if we get better about using a form and say exactly what do you want, you guys have the right to review those and give them the right to speak. You don't have to allow them, so then at that point you can like look them over and say, and talk to them and say, you know, this is probably best if you meet the superintendent first, and then if you feel like it's not resolved, then you can submit another request. But
Can we put that like at the beginning of the form? Like a proper procedure, and have you gone through these procedures and then fill out the form, I guess?
We could have it say right on there, have them check it off, and if it's not checked off, they're
Yes.
not speaking.
Right. So, can we put that in policy then?
Sure.
Just,
I think so.
I'm suggesting, let's put it in policy, that we make sure that this is something that has gone through the proper channels.
That's a very good idea.
That way Ryan can squash the ones that we don't need to hear about.
Absolutely will. And then we'll all do it like, have you talked to the principal?
Exactly, but that's what I'm saying, like, we need to put the proper procedure on there even before
Yes.
Ryan, you know, is this a concern with the teacher? Have you talked to the principal? You know, and if so, have you talked to the superintendent?
I did write up a draft. I think I gave it to you guys maybe a couple work sessions
Yes.
previous. But in there, there's some verbiage that says something similar to not all requests, either if you're not there and you want it read in open forum, you guys have the right to say that not all of them will be read or discussed or whatever. So you ultimately, whatever public comment request that is presented to you, we don't have to
Right.
grant that. So it's in public meeting law that, you know, so ultimately, I don't think we'd have to technically write it in policy.
I just wanted to know why.
Okay.
It's like, well, see this box right here you didn't check? Well, that's why.
I think as long as each request is addressed, you know, if they aren't granted to speak at that board meeting, if they're addressed prior to that and say, we would like to proceed with your comment in this
Right.
manner first.
Well, and so often in our policy, at the very end, it says, it refers people to the KL policy, which is the outline that you're talking about, the
Right,
proper procedure.
exactly.
It would be a lot more efficient to incorporate that into this policy, but, I mean, to have the procedure that they should go through in the public comment, so they don't have to read all the way through to the bottom and say, oh, I need to do the KL, go to KL.
Well, and it could be as simple as that, just say have the procedures outlined in
Yes.
policy KL been followed.
But so often, if people are looking on the internet for public comment, they're just gonna look public comment,
Right.
so. So, a work in progress.
Perhaps on your point, did I understand right, you're thinking public comment before and after?
Public comment for the agenda items at the beginning, because when people want to make a comment about something that's on the agenda, that is something that we actually need to hear then.
Right.
But, you know, if they're talking about something, you know, that is not on the agenda, that we have no background on, we can't deal with it. At least I don't feel that we should deal with it.
Yeah, I think one issue you might create with that, maybe I'm wrong, is you're gonna create, people are gonna, they're gonna come in and want to talk about whatever. Even if it's an agenda item time, they're gonna try to come in and speak during their agenda item time. And it's just gonna be kind of confusing for those folks. You a slot of time for public comment. And they can come out either talk about agenda items or whatever, take that 3 minutes of time. If we got, then we deal with the agenda items there. And if it's something we can't answer, we can say, we'll get back to you with an answer on that, or whatever we want to do. That's just my suggestion on it.
And, you know, you'll notice we really haven't had a lot of public comment.
You're probably not gonna get a whole lot. I just don't see, I mean, unless people come in here and want to be active. I've seen it at so many meetings where they don't just come in here and be active unless it's a hot topic.
Well, calendar issue coming soon.
How's that?
Calendar issue.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, unless it's a hot
Yeah.
topic.
So calendar.
That's just my experience with seeing it. Just thought.
I appreciate that.
We can always change it. Let's
That's true.
try it one way, and if it doesn't work, we can always change it.
I mean, it's our meeting, we can do what we want. But I do appreciate the comment, Jeremy, about we need to have in there the procedure. Any other comments on that? Hearing none, and we will move on to the OSBA recommended policy update.
For fun. So it's this big packet right here, so it's the policy updates, and this is kind of going on for November. As you see through here, there's only 2 of them that are required or highly recommended on there. And so what I did above all policy, just to let you know, I just put a little square on top, and I put O is for optional, just for you guys to know when you guys are going through that, so you have to keep referencing back and forth. Oh, this is an option 1, we can look at it, and as you can see on there, so there are, so that's what the O is. I also asked Mr. Garani to write some comments on some things on the role we discussed then, and we'll have our first reading on Monday, next Monday, and then we'll have another study session where we'll go more in depth on these. But what I wanted to do is just kind of review them for you, a quick 5-minute, like, when you guys are reading them, here's some things to think about. Because then you'll have first reading, then you'll have your questions, and we can get into it. So, just to let you know, that's kind of the process I went through on presenting them to you. So, as you see the policy update, you have them all here, the contents, on that front page, and then there's some of your bills, but we'll get into the first one. So this one's optional, and this is your board meeting one. Oh, I'm sorry, this is BD, or BD/BDA. See that one? Your next one is an optional as well, your BDC, and that is your executive sessions. And like I said, you'll see on there, just in case, the highlighted ones are ones that they want to add in there. Your strike through is the ones they want to take out of our current policy.
So these are their edits.
It's their edit time. Yep. And at any time, if you guys say, well, you know, I want convened by order, then you guys can put it back in. But this is just the recommendation of OSBA. And this is one of those times we're having somebody who knows about laws and things like that on the board. It's like, well, they might have taken out convened by order for a good reason. And so this is where you're going to shine. So thank you. So the EFA is the next one. This is a required one. I know this has come up previous back in the spring. We talked a little bit about this, but the local wellness program. And so this is, like I said, this is required. I think a big part of this when you're reading through it is that wellness committee or group. Your next policy, which is GCBDA, that's highly recommended. And so these ones now, these are kind of weird. So I'm going to just walk you guys through them. It's a little difficult. So the first 2 are your GBDA, and these are your family medical leave for districts of our size. Now, if you go past the first 2 stapled together, the next one is the same thing. It's called version 2. I highlighted down there, I just underlined it, where it says these are for districts between 25 and 50 employees, which obviously we're bigger than that. So the version 2 are for your smaller committees, or call it smaller districts. I've added them in there, but for your guys' references, it's not recommended for a district of our size. So you see on that version 2 on there. So the next one, highly recommended. This is your family, this is OFLA. And know that the FMLA and the OFLA and those things, we are in compliance because it is law. These are just kind of our policy of them. We're going to follow the law. We're already doing these pieces. So that's why they're highly recommended, but not required, because we are already complying with the law. So you guys can say, hey, we don't want to muck up, have more policies than needed. That's okay too. So if you look at the next one is your family leave. That's GCBDA/GDBDA-AR. Your AR is your administrative rule, or actually putting that into process. So this is version 1 for districts, and I underline it, with 50 or more employees, which would be applicable to us. The next version is for districts with 25 to 50 employees. I would, like I said, based on the recommendation, reading it, it wouldn't be appropriate for us. I know, super exciting for you guys. The next one is the GCBDF, and this is version 1 of the paid family medical leave insurance, which we have, the PFML. We're at PFML. Yeah, which as you know we're already doing and instilling that. And so now it's presented to you guys last year, and we're 2 months in, and we have people taking us up on it, so it's really good. So the version 1 is more appropriate to us, and so that's it. Any questions on those? I know policies are super fun to go through, but I think that gives you a good kind of, so you guys can dive into it and know a big half of that are things that we are doing, and half of that is you can take out because it is more appropriate for small districts. So.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate your going through those and letting us. Any questions for Ryan that I mentioned?
Sure. Okay.
Okay, then we'll move on to the next item, which is the superintendent search timeline.
So everyone is aware that we sent out a request for proposal, what we call an RFP. We are searching for a firm to help us search for a superintendent. And so that RFP went out on, I think it went out before October 23rd.
I think it went out the 18th.
The 18th of October. So our timeline just for receiving proposals for the board to review, they have until November 9th, which is Thursday, to call and ask questions if they have any questions regarding our request for proposal. But the RFPs are due this Friday by noon. And we have already received 3 that have been emailed to all the board members. So if you don't have 3 in your inbox, then let us know and we'll get you whatever one you're missing. The timeline, it's going to feel a little rushed to the board, but that's because when Dawn, Megan, and I, and Pat, when we got together to go over the timeline, we kind of wanted to squish a lot into finding a firm to give you guys more time for interviewing and actually selecting a superintendent, not spending so much time hiring a firm. So the proposals are due by this Friday. We already have 3. If we receive any more, that'll get emailed to you. What we're asking is on Monday, at our board meeting on the 13th, that the board as a whole just selects the firms that you guys want to interview. So that's your first kind of motion of business. And then once you select which firms you want to interview, you might want to interview all of them, I'm not sure, but you need to make that decision by Monday, or at Monday's meeting. We've penciled it out on the calendar to take the first week of December to schedule those interviews with those firms. And then at the December board meeting, which is the 11th of December, that's when the board would extend the intent to award the contract. And then that very next day, we'd ask for confirmation from the firm, whoever you're trying to hire. And then, an important date to put on your calendar is December 13th. That's when we've penciled in a work session. That's when the board would get together with the firm that you've hired to then go over the timeline and your expectations, talk about stakeholders, interviews, and just your overall communication about how you're going to communicate with the firm that you've hired.
And what date is that again?
December 13th. Yes. And I know it's crunching, and I'm sorry, but we're trying to get it all done so that they can do their thing and begin to start interviewing.
Yeah, it really is kind of a crunched time period, especially Thanksgiving and Christmas,
Yeah.
or, but we did meet, we did want to get the firm selected and then be able to move forward with the actual process. So, and, if we decide that we want to interview all the firms, that would be great, because it would probably be I don't know, a Zoom or in person. We probably would decide on that too.
I think the RFP, I think the intention is in person,
Okay.
but I thought we need to change that.
Okay, yes, we can.
So I'm not sure, were there other questions? Did I go over everything you wanted me to go over? So really by Monday, you need to look at the 3 applications that you've received or the 3 proposals, and just as a board, decide who you want to interview.
And if we get any more proposals.
Yes, any more proposals that come in by Friday at noon will be emailed to you. And if you're missing one, because you should have 3, just let me know.
Okay. Then we'll go on to, there's other questions? Other questions? We'll go on to the board report. The OSBA elections are coming up. The person running for the legislative policy committee is the individual from Atlanta who is currently doing it, Bruce Kalar. And he is doing, I think, a good job. He's the only person currently running for that position, so I told Bruce I would give him a recommendation myself. And he has asked me a question, and that is why item number 4, the statewide collective bargaining is done, and we'll talk about that later. The other thing are the resolutions that are on to be reviewed. The OSBA bylaws have come up for review, and those are the those to look at. Any questions on those? Okay, then the next item is the rural caucus. I'm promoting the rural caucus. It would, as I've said before, give those of us in the smaller school districts an opportunity to have a voice with OSBA itself. And hopefully get some of our concerns out. That is one of the reasons my concern about, and Megan's concern a little bit about, not having a voice for our school district, which is 60-70% Hispanic. That is why we got on the color caucus, was because it gave us the opportunity to come forward and say, some of our students have these problems, and these are impacts on our students, and we're not, and a lot of this population, but it includes our rural kids. I mean, you know, we need the CTE and that kind of stuff. So anyway, I promote the Rural Caucus because it would give us hopefully another opportunity to have a voice at the table. Any questions? Then the next item is the annual conference agenda. And Susie and I are going to the OSBA conference. She and I are going, well, and Ryan is also attending. I looked over the agenda, and there are quite a few good, I believe, workshops that we'll attend. One of my concerns is the equity problem, and I don't want to call it a problem, but the equity question. So, you know, that's one of the things. Plus, there's also the mental health issue. Have you all had a chance to look over what some of the programs are? Because I would hope that if you saw something on that agenda that you thought that we should pay particular attention to, you let us know. And please do, because it's coming up, we're leaving on Wednesday for this conference.
Yeah, if you guys can look at that and just give us, I mean, even me, say, hey, Ryan, this might be one really, you know, we want to see you do, and any sort of recommendation on that would be great if you did have some, it's not in there? Sorry. If you say this would be something for a board to bring back, if we want more information on, maybe it's.
I kind of marked those, I thought, it was good, and I put a line or two if you guys are gonna talk about it, so you both can.
We have copies over here, and, sorry, there was just a lot of copies at the end. But no, if you do see some, please reach out and say, hey, if you guys could make it to this one. There'll obviously be ones that I find important are superintendent board relationships and things like that. And so if you do see something you want us to, or me to go to, throw it out there. And so, I want to know that.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Because I thought that go on by one, what that really differs to, you see you're going to.
What we try to do is split it up so we all go to different workshops so we can all get the information and share it. If there is a conference that we can't go to that you think we need the information on, we can get the information. You know, if they have any handouts, we can get those. We'd appreciate it if you'd, because you're going to get you're going to hear us talk about it at the board meeting. We'll give you a brief report.
And yeah, there's a lot of great information in these, and so we want to make sure that we program it back. My first one I went to, I remember Dennis Savage was on the board, and we're downtown Portland walking, and like the riots were happening right then. I had a little carry suitcase, little Samson, and I'm running down the thing, and it's just like, yeah, they shut down the max early because they said, hey, there's a riot down there, we can't do it.
Well, I think the part of
This is great.
still on strike.
Yeah, so get that going for, no, it's actually, I love this conference, there's a lot of stuff that's
Just don't
specific
step
for.
outside the hotel.
Yeah, so,
There's homeless people right now.
perfect, thank you.
Last time I found downtown, sitting in a hotel, they had shots go freaking out across there.
Oh, that could be missed this Saturday.
What's that?
Saturday might miss it.
Or they're down there.
Okay, so because we want to make this meeting short, I'll go ahead and talk about the statewide collective bargaining. At the OSBA legislative roadshow this month, that was the big topic, was the statewide collective bargaining. And that's what OSBA wanted to talk to us. They want our feedback, they want our feedback. You were there. Do you have anything to say about it? I mean, Dustin had a really good comment about it, you know. What'd you say? He said something about experimentation is expensive.
Pass the drug policy.
So, right, so Washington is moving forward with the policy, and we're saying, well, why don't we follow Washington into this? Why? Let's let Washington find out all the problems and correct it.
And they all have same problems.
Right.
I mean, they're.
Well, they're already talking about almost undoing. So,
And, you know, one of the questions Megan asked was, why? What's the why behind why we want to have statewide collective bargaining? You know, and I asked, does this mean that all our job descriptions have to be the same? You know, we're gonna pay basically the same amount of money, so they all have to be the same job descriptions?
well, that's just that they hit their statewide collective bargaining. They realized they had to reduce a whole bunch of what was already bargained for because it's too expensive, and now Washington teachers are saying, all right, we're not gonna get what we were promised, we're going to strike. I mean, it's a flop, so why would we do it?
Is there anything good that might come of from doing it this way?
Well, that's, you know, that's.
Oh, I feel the tension, just wondering.
You're trying to, if I understand it right, you're trying to, you're trying to just blanket, and you're just trying to get this blanket coverage for it, and every area is gonna be different, so
Yeah.
it's just not gonna work, and they're finding out.
The benefit they tried to push was, at least my understanding of it was, it's more of a statewide pay system. Now, it doesn't mean that people in this would get paid the same as in Portland, but they would tag it off of the area. And so it would just be a statewide pay scale where it's supposed to be kind of equal pay no matter what part of the state you're in based on cost of living. But it seems like what they're finding is they're not very good at doing that calculation. So
So we kind of say it's setting a minimum wage for teachers.
basically, except it's based on cost of living.
It's based off an index.
Yeah.
And we have to deal with contracts that go off of indexes, and it's never possible to figure everything into it. And as soon as you think you do, then somebody feels like they're getting cheated, and it's a fight all the time. Because you think you're trying to get the numbers right, and they're never right.
So it's something you guys have to vote on, or?
No, this is
No.
just a
Your
This
question.
is what the
No.
state is
Oh,
trying to
Yeah,
do.
this is just a question, and it's something that, you know, we need to communicate to our OSBA office.
Well, and so this is a place where like rural caucus might be beneficial.
Yes.
Because they're saying it'll probably be before, well, they said it won't be before the legislature, before 2025. That's kind of their goal, but
Write your name down.
it may not be. And so I can't imagine that schools participating in the rural caucus are going to vote for statewide control.
If you were going to go to a blanket salary thing, it would be better if it was a district based, you know, so that you set it up according to your district rather than letting the state do it. Does that make sense?
It does, but that's what they want to get away from.
I know,
Right.
but they want this blanket salary or whatever. It's like, well, if you want it to set up to where all the teachers are getting paid the same, do it per district or whatever.
Well, what's from the Allen is you have some of your west end of the country.
Right.
Telling you how much we're gonna have to pay our, whether we can afford that or not.
Well, I think perhaps some of it has to do with, you know, at the time that we were at this meeting, Portland was just talking about striking, the Portland teachers just talking about striking, now they're on strike. So, you know, we need to be looking to think, what kind of ramifications is this going to, you know, reach out further than, and just, you know, it's the biggest district in the state.
Well, it can't, it would be statewide strikes, we're talking statewide collective bargaining. Right. Every district will be the exact same problem.
Unfortunately, there's so many loopholes in it to increase your pay by the city, because you do, right? You raise kind of your local taxes or things like that to throw in. And so what's gonna happen is you're getting more have and have not situations. And so it just makes things more uncomfortable. That's what they're seeing in Washington. And so it's just, at this point, with as much knowledge, I can't endorse something like that.
But I just needed to bring it out because, for one thing, I told Bruce Kellogg that I would ask the question so I can get back with him and tell him that, you know, what the basic thing is. Okay. That's the extent of this. Is there anything else that needs to be brought up before we have our regular meeting? If that's the case, then this meeting is adjourned, this work session is adjourned. All right, quarter to 8.